Hey guys, welcome back to the Backstop. Benny Bam coming at you strong once again as we talk baseball talk. We walk the walk. We do everything we have to do because baseball talk is what we do. So once again here joined by Jim Kapanis Jr. and Eric Linneberg. We've got all this baseball experience, all this baseball knowledge, and still none of it can explain Tony La Russa trying to get out of a DUI with his World Series ring. It's just amazing to me that we can have all of these things and we still can't get all the way to that point after that. But it did seem kind of like even in their own organization, that wasn't necessarily the most popular decision. But to find out that he was charged literally the day before he was hired, although the incident happened in February, and then to hear the transcript, of course. And that's the thing, Tony. Now you're back in the mind's eye, right? Now people are digging this stuff up because you're the manager of the White Sox. You're the manager. So where you could have faded in the background and nobody maybe would have cared or looked into it, now you're back in the limelight, and that's what happens when that kind of stuff goes on. Eric, I know this was not necessarily the choice that you were hoping for Tony in his retirement. What are your thoughts as we hear this stuff about La Russa?
Yeah, and see, this is the point I was trying to make. He is returning to a world of baseball that is very different than the one he left. From the players to the way they do things to analytics, right on down to social media. He's got to realize now anything he says or does as manager of the White Sox is immediately going to be analyzed by people, some who know nothing about baseball. He'll be either praised or attacked on social media without any rhyme or reason. And he's going to be sitting back going, what in the world has happened? Am I in the Twilight Zone? And as far as the incident itself, I mean, to say to a police officer, hey, don't you know who I am? I'm a Hall of Famer. It hasn't worked for anybody else, Tony, so I don't think it'll work for you either. That was just bad judgment on his part. But it also shows his age. The guy, is he 77? Is that what we determined? 76 years old. And coming back to manage a young team with some star players, one of whom we're going to talk about shortly. And I just felt he was better off in retirement, slide into his golden years and enjoy life, much like Jim's dad is. Plays golf when he wants to. He does whatever he wants to, basically, and was former major league player. And Tony, why you couldn't do the same thing, I don't know. I believe it's his ego that drove him to accept that position. And I don't see the White Sox as having a great year in 2021. That's just my gut feeling about it. But what do you guys think?
Well, we've got that incident, right? And then you also had Tim Anderson, the former All-Star shortstop of the Chicago White Sox, who's been in and out because of injuries and stuff, but is obviously a very good talent, one of their pillars to build around there. Tim Anderson, great player. And he actually came out and said, hey, well, I'm not changing my bat flip for anybody. I'm not going to be anybody else, like all this kind of stuff, which shows you the dichotomy between now and really La Russa's era, right? Where he was the man, he was in charge. People didn't say that back then, which ironically was the same era that you played in, Jim. What are your thoughts on this stuff and what you hear from guys like Tim Anderson now?
Well, and that's the let the kids play, thing that has been really going around, a lot in the last couple of years. And I kind of like it. I kind of think it's it's a new generation. And, these kids were playing travel ball and they just came up a different way than we did. And it doesn't mean that our way was better or their way was better. It's just different.
Our way was better. Our way was better, Jim.
Well, in a lot of ways, because we would also play, wiffle ball in the street when we weren't at practice, and these kids actually overplay. They play too many games. They don't practice enough.
They really do.
And that's that's another, part of this equation. But yeah, for a young up and coming superstar where, oftentimes your fame is based around your antics nowadays, with social media and what you do on the field and the way you wear your uniform, it's all part of your brand, right? These guys have a brand now. We didn't have a freaking brand when we played. We just played, and
right.
Griffey had one, but Nike built it. He didn't build it, So, it's just a totally different world. And I'm not sure if La Russa's not, it doesn't, I'm not sure. I'm sure he understands that there's a whole different world now for these young guys. I almost guarantee that he understands this. He's been in the game, never left it really. He just has gone to the advisory roles. He still, he still sees the, you know, the customs and the socialization that goes on, in clubhouses. So I kind of almost think like that's really not the point, or a point of that's going to cause issue with him. I think the biggest point is really going to come down to the analytics side of it and how he's going to adapt to that, or is he going to adapt to it at all? That's really why I think a lot of the reasons Socia was sort of pushed out was he really wasn't 100% bought in. And I know, Benny, you could probably, give a better background on this, but it seemed like that was, one of the big reasons when they brought in the new GM, they didn't re-up Socia, was that he didn't buy into a lot of the stuff that the new baseball in the front office requires. So I'm more interested in seeing how La Russa handles a situation like a first and second and nobody out with an eighth batter up, where in his day they would bunt and now nobody bunts. It's like that's what I'm curious to see, the strategic and tactical in-game decisions and how he handles with the pitchers, more so than how they're going to deal with a bad flip or some guy wearing an outrageous outfit on an airplane, or saying something outlandish on social media.
Well, and you mentioned nobody bunts anymore. We did see just recently in the World Series, Manuel Margot noticed that Turner was playing it deep at third. He dropped one down and got a base hit out of the bunt. We also saw very bold move by the Dodgers. Austin Barnes laid down a sacrifice suicide squeeze bunt, got a run home.
Yeah.
So maybe those are examples of things that other GMs and managers look at and go, maybe we could work that into our game analytically somehow, because those are tools that are huge to the game if they're used properly and if they're practiced and if they're perfected. It would be wonderful, as far as I'm concerned, to see a bunt come back to the game, to see a hit and run every now and then.
Well, Benny, what about Mookie's stolen bases this in the World Series, which really they manufactured runs because of his legs, because he wasn't hitting the ball like he had in previous series or during the regular season, kind of struggling at the plate. But when he got on,
games 5 and 6.
Then once he got on, it was a triple.
Right.
And you just don't see that in baseball anymore. And it was like he was playing Little League again. He just took advantage of all of the opportunities, because now the catchers are all on one knee. I mean, if the guy's going to steal, I'm sorry, you're not going to have as good of a chance of throwing him out off the one, starting in a one knee stance. It's just get up on your legs like we had to and be ready to throw the guy out. And that catcher, I can't remember what's his name was for Tampa. I mean, he didn't throw anybody out.
Yeah, Mike Zunino.
Yeah, and he's got a cannon, but that's
–
when you're not expecting someone to run, and now you don't pick off 4 times like we used to and slide step, you're not going to throw anybody out. And Zunino's he's known for his defensive prowess, and he's got a good arm, and he's got a quick release. They had no chance getting these guys. So, that's something that I think that I saw for the first time in many, many years, where was the Dodgers, who couldn't get runs except for hitting home runs. And in this particular series, they actually manufactured runs without home runs. And to me, that's why they won the World Series. And in the previous years, they did not.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's good points to be made there. One of the things too with La Russa, and this is one of the things that really bugs me about that story, is he was part of the Angels when he did that. And he was an advisor. And, if you know anything about the recent history of the Angels outside of obvious whatever still undergoing in the Tyler Skaggs investigation and all that, they're now trying to still wrap all that up. There was a pitcher named Nick Adenhart that died in a drunk driving accident after he had the most amazing, wonderfully optimistic start for an Angels pitcher in a long time in 2009. And died in an intersection, I think it was Orange, Thorpe, and Lemon, over there by that Big Five over there in Fullerton. And I remember, because I was in that parking lot about an hour before that happened, and I used to work at that Big Five as a kid. And so it's a particularly sensitive topic, the drinking and driving thing. And I hope that Tony understands that, it doesn't matter how much money you make or how many rings you've won. Those kinds of decisions, there's no way out of that. You're not gonna accomplish your way out of a situation like that. What you do is you use your accomplishments and your wisdom to not put yourself in situations like that. And why a guy like Tony La Russa doesn't have a driver when he's in a situation where he's drinking or whatever anyway is kind of ridiculous. I'm sure he can afford it, and if he didn't, I'm sure team would help him with that. I mean, these guys are, he's a baseball lifer. He's a legend of the game. He worked for MLB after he had already won rings with the Cardinals and other rings too, but he with A's. But he, it's just ridiculous to me, and it's a particularly sore topic that it seems like the Angels are like doomed to repeat this cycle of this crap. And it just, obviously it can happen to anybody, but it's particularly sensitive to that organization. And it's just, so all the things that have happened, and then you add in things like what happened to Valbuena, even though he had been released for a few months when that happened, but he was still a very beloved player, and had played in the AL West even before that with the Astros. And he died in a silly situation that he should have never been in, even though we understand why he was. And I'm sure he didn't think anything of it when it was going on because he grew up in situations like that. But it was just, there's been a lot of that in that organization. And for Tony to not take that seriously and then try to use, that standing to get out of something really bothered me when I heard about that. Right. And anyway, I hope that, I hope everything goes well for him. I hope the White Sox have an amazing, year, and that it becomes a story of, don't count somebody who is his age out just because of their age. I mean, we saw Jack McKeon manage, I think it was 80s at one point with the Marlins when he came back the second time. And we've seen guys that, there were guys even when you guys were coming up that had managed forever. I mean, forever. They were like a 40-year manager, a 30-year manager at certain points with certain clubs. And that's when there were less clubs. And that's because they were really good year over year. And it was harder to even win back then because there were less teams, which, and there were less playoff spots. But really bothered me when I heard about that for a lot of reasons. And that was the one that came to mind the most. It's just that perspective of it also having been tied to the Angels, which is not good to be tied to anybody or just for him to do it on his own, tied to nobody. But, that definitely hits a sore spot that is not a fun one when you've had, multiple, people die in recent tragic memory. So hopefully Tony gets it together and does well. And Tony, we all know you can do better than that. So, just try, that's kind of one of those, get a driver, dude, do something different, or, don't drink, whatever suits your fancy or whatever. I mean, you've earned the right to have a drink at this point in your life, but, do it responsibly. I mean, for the love of God, please. Don't take anybody down with you, please.
And speaking of the Angels, all of the awards have been announced, the ones that we talked about in our previous show, the candidates for the MVP, Cy Young, Manager of the Year, Rookie of the Year. And I had a letter from a listener who thought that Trevor Bauer had come up with the Angels. He didn't, actually. And I had it clarified by, first of all, let's congratulate Trevor Bauer on winning the National League Cy Young Award. Trevor Bauer won National League, and the American League was won by Bieber from the Indians, and it was a unanimous vote for Bieber. You guys might remember, had picked Maeda, but Bieber won the American League, Bauer the National League. But Patrick Becker of Good Arizona clarified through a group message I'm in with him, that yet another former Diamondback draft pick wins the Cy Young Award. And one of the major reasons that caused the front office to dislike Bauer was they didn't like his pregame routine. They didn't like his social media presence even back then. He was outspoken as a young guy. He was very brazen, and they traded him. And what had happened is a new GM had come in. I think it was Dave Stewart, and wanted him to change and do this and this and this. Bauer wouldn't do it. Next thing you know, he was gone. He's now a Cy Young Award winner. By the way, the other Cy Young Award winner that the Diamondbacks drafted #1 and then traded away was Max Scherzer. So can you imagine the difference in that division over the last few years if Max Scherzer had been with Arizona, having all these great seasons, rather than in Washington? So having said that, though, let's get into the winners. Okay, those are the Cy Young Award winners. Any comments from you guys on Bieber and Bauer? Do you think anyone else deserved consideration more than I said Maeda?
I just was concerned that Bauer
they
wasn't
did.
going to get it because of the antics. Because it's a vote. You know, it's a popularity contest at some level.
Right.
Benny,
Right.
Benny, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No. I mean, like we talked about on the last show, I mean, I think some of those other guys were certainly deserving. I think you could have made a strong case for, Darvish had a really, outstanding stretch.
Yeah.
DeGrom, it would have been 3 in a row, but he had that one really, really horrible start. And in a shortened season that really, you couldn't get rid of that ERA. There was nowhere to put it, over the amount of time that he had. Where you'd be able to stretch that out over however many more innings and have solid performances, and nobody would remember that. But unfortunately, that one game against the Phillies or whatever kind of doomed DeGrom because his numbers just blew up over one game, and he only pitched 10 games or something. That's not there's no time to do anything with that. But he still had a good season. If it had won a full season, I don't doubt that maybe he would have had a shot at a third one, and he was still a finalist. But congratulations to Trevor Bauer, another one of these Jim Wagner guys, another one of these guys that is innovative when it comes to pitching. When he has a bad game, he analyzes it. He comes up with new, creative, innovative approaches just on the performance side. Whatever you think about him and his antics on social media or whatever, I mean, he is who he is, and he does what he does. And I don't like it either because he was like, "Oh, am I going to pick a team based on which teams fans follow me the most? Maybe." So I get where he's coming from. I mean, the kid's marketing. He's smart. I mean, he's trying to work it while he's got it. You're not going to be at this peak Cy Young level of pitching in Major League Baseball forever. And while you've got it, you might as well flaunt it. So I mean, but he had an amazing season. He deserved it. Bieber has been fantastic. To think Cleveland had both those guys on their team a couple years back with Carrasco and with Clevenger as well. All 4 of those guys were in that rotation.
Incredible.
So, and the other guy wasn't bad either. I can't remember his name, but they had a couple other guys too. So amazing what they're doing with pitching up there.
Right. Bauer, going back to Bauer for a second, I like him. I like his colorfulness. And I think we need more guys like that in baseball. I wouldn't want 5 guys on every team to be that way, but we need a few. We need a few guys that are colorful and that cause a little commotion every now and then in positive ways. Now, you don't see Bauer come out and trash another player unless it's been done to him, and then he'll respond in a humorous way. But mostly, the things he does are positive, and they're outspoken, and he'll question things that we all question, but everyone's afraid to say it. If they work in Major League Baseball, but he'll come out and say it. So I like Bauer. I follow him on social media. And I'm happy he won the award. I think he deserved the award, as I had said on the previous show.
You know that UCLA had him and Garrett Cole at the top of their rotation? Think about that. Ooh.
Wow.
Crazy.
Wow. Now, just before we came on the air, they announced the Most Valuable Player Awards. Earlier today, they announced the American League, and then just before we came on, the National League. American League Award went to Jose Abreu of the White Sox. And although I don't have any problem with that at all, I had picked DJ LeMahieu. However, Abreu definitely is deserving. He's put together a solid career in Chicago. He's been there, 5 years now? And even though Chicago is a big market, for some reason, he hasn't gotten the attention that I think a guy who put up his kind of numbers deserves. So I'm glad to see him get the recognition and win the award this year. So congrats to Jose Abreu. And in the National League, the award went to Freddie Freeman. And my initial reaction was, okay, everyone's didn't want Betts to win it because he won the American League 2 years ago, and they don't want to be talking about the Dodgers all winter and all that. But I was wrong the more I thought about it. Freeman had to overcome a lot just to get on the field this year. You might remember he missed the first part of the season. He was going to sit out because of COVID. And he came back and started playing right after being very sick. And if you look at his numbers the first couple of weeks of the season, they weren't strong at all. And he really had to kick it into high gear to get the numbers up where they were. He came in second place in batting in the National League, was in the top 5 in just about every department you can think of offensively. And you could make a case that they would not have been in the postseason without him. They certainly would not have gotten all the way to the National League Championship Series against the Dodgers. And because of him, they almost beat the Dodgers. So Freddie Freeman, very well deserving. I think he deserved what he got. And so I'm good with both MVP awards. How about you guys? Jim?
I'm kind of surprised. I thought Mookie had it pretty locked up. He had such a great season. The Dodgers had such a great season. And it's almost like, their manager got punished because they had such a great season. The MVP gets punished because they had such a great season. No Dodger pitchers on the ERA. On the Cy Young ballot because they had such a great season. I mean, it's almost like they were penalized because they were so damn good.
That was my initial reaction too. And the more I thought about it, though, Jim, if you think about Freeman taking Betts out of the equation. Think about what Freeman had to do to win the award. I'm with you on Dave Roberts. How do you have the best record in baseball, lead your team to the World Series? I know the vote was made the last day of the season, but still, everyone knew they were going to go deep in the playoffs, if not win it all. How do you do that and make some of the moves he made over the course of the year and juggle that team that had so many pieces to the puzzle where one day this guy had to play there, day this guy had to play there? How do you do that and not even be one of the nominees?
It's expectations versus reality. It's expectations versus reality. That's what it's based on. It's not based on performance, which is what it should be based on.
That's right.
Because
that's absolutely right, Benny.
If you're a perennial contender and you win year after year after year, you're not going to get credit the second and third year as much as you would, even though maybe those were even harder. And it's actually even harder to repeat and do those things because you're even more worn out. You have new pieces to integrate into an already winning formula. It's not as easy. And Jace Tingler was the runner-up for that award to Don Mattingly, which congratulations, Don Mattingly.
Yes.
It's not easy, especially with what the Marlins have done to their roster. I'm surprised that they even had kept him around. But he kind of turns it around, and it is a short season. So he was only a couple games above 500. But he did it with 40 guys in like 60 games. So that's, or 61 guys in 60 games.
61 guys in 60 games. That's incredible.
You give it to him. No problem there. I think Mattingly, Donnie Baseball deserved it. He, by the way, I think he's the first or second guy to ever win an MVP and Manager of the Year. So, congratulations. That's awesome. To me, like the fact that Jace Tingler came in second and the guy that whooped his butt in that division, Dave Roberts, wasn't even one of the finalists is just kind of a microcosm of the way they determine these things now. It's just
speaks volumes to the way they determine things now. It's David Ross being the third nominee ahead of Dave Roberts. Now, how does that happen? You could make an argument that Gabe Kapler with the Giants had a better year than David Ross in some ways. But, the Cubs had a great year. I think that probably you could have pulled some kid off a college team that had to sit out the season, put him in as manager of the Cubs, and they still would have won. That's how I felt about that team. They were so solid. So Roberts not even being there was kind of an insult too, when you think about it, because I think that this year he managed better than he ever had, and he had some good years managing. But this year, okay, they added Betts, and everyone said, "Oh, they added Betts. They added the second best player in baseball. There's no doubt they're going to win." Well, that's not all that happened. He had to deal with David Price sitting out the season. He had to deal with that pitching staff that ended up being Walker Buehler, Clayton Kershaw, and then who are we going to start for the next 3 games? It was always a juggling act. And again, the vote was taken the final day of the season. So the people voting didn't get to see the way he managed that pitching staff during the World Series, which was a thing of beauty as far as I'm concerned. It was artistic the way he handled that staff. Julio Urias coming in that last game, and he left him in there for 2 1/3 innings of relief to win.
You're right. You trade one of your best pitchers midway through the season, Ross Stripling, right? And you're depending on rookies to fill spot that have no postseason experience. And, you know, I mean, other than talking to Kershaw in the dugout or something, like that's not really the same thing, even though
Right.
I'm sure that's good. But, and then getting a guy like Betts could easily blow up in your face. That was an all-in move. That could have blown up in your face. Who says that Bellinger and Kershaw, 2 former MVPs, are not sitting here going, hey, like, we're the MVPs of this team. We have 2 MVPs. We don't need another guy like this.
Yeah.
Like, that could have easily, that happens all the time when you do
It
stuff
does
like this.
happen.
Like, and it didn't. You know, he was
It
all
didn't.
in. They said, hey, this guy's won rings. He can help us get over the top. And that's exactly what happened. And Dave Roberts didn't get in the way.
Dave Roberts is probably the reason it didn't happen. Dave Roberts and a guy like Justin Turner being in the clubhouse, probably the reason that didn't happen. Besides the fact that Mookie is well liked and well respected and didn't come in there as the superstar and say, hey, I'm the guy here now. I read today, in fact, that he had held a team meeting, players only, first day of spring training, and had a talk with them about attitude coming into this season. We're having the 60-game season, and how this year we've got to be aggressive. We've got to make the right moves. We got to be doing it right on the field all the time. There's not going to be any room for mistakes this year, and basically gave a pep talk to his new team. So that in itself was a huge thing that totally got overlooked by the media. They heard he held this clubhouse talk. Oh, okay, that was nice. And then moved on to the next story. So Roberts did one other thing I want to recognize real quick during the World Series. I think it was in Game 6. 7th inning, I believe it was. Jock Peterson had been playing on that field. And for the last 2.5 years, maybe the last 3 seasons, every time a left-handed pitcher came in, Jock came out and Kike Hernandez came in and hit, no matter the situation, because Hernandez can play left field as well as second base and shortstop. In this situation, he left Jock in to hit against the left-handed relief ace of the Rays bullpen. I thought that was huge for the confidence of Jock Peterson. It showed that not only Dave had confidence in him, but the team did. And if you look what happened, the Rays were shaking their heads going, wait, we thought he was going to be pitching to Hernandez. No, he's pitching Peterson. Well, he threw 2 wide ones far outside, hoping Peterson would swing and miss. And Peterson was locked in. You could see it in his body language and his facial expression. Had they thrown him a letter high fastball, it was going to be over the fence. So they went in and walked him intentionally after those first 2. But I bring that up just to say that's the kind of manager Dave Roberts is. He will build confidence in his players every chance he gets. He had a chance there in the World Series on the biggest stage, and he let Peterson hit against a left-hander, which he never does. By the way, Jock Peterson now is at the top of a list of Dodger Hall of Famers. He has hit home runs in more World Series than Jackie Robinson, Duke Snider, and a guy who's not a Hall of Famer but should be, Gil Hodges. They all played in at least 3 World Series. Jock is the only one on that list that homered in each one. So, Jock, my hat's off to you. Everyone knows I love Jock anyway. I'll be sad to see you go. I know it's coming, but it just points up one more thing Dave Roberts did that really showed his character as a manager and what he will do to boost his players.
Yeah, and I think that's where that gets overlooked in the manager of the year kind of thing, and really that's why he should have been in the running, because the chemistry part in today's game is so much different than, like, remember in the 70s, it was in the 80s, it was so much about the moves of getting a base by bunting over a guy and stealing a guy and then double stealing and hitting and running and squeeze and like all these managerial tactics. And now really the manager's job is to make sure the home run hitters get a good night's sleep and have a good meal when they get to the ballpark and are happy with the way things are going. And it's a totally different skill set for a manager of today versus a manager of that foregone era, which wasn't that far ago. Wasn't that long ago.
No, it wasn't, Jim. And did you ever have a manager who was very concerned that you were in a good mood and you were happy to play that day? Because I never did.
No, in fact, it was the opposite. Like if you were smiling and having fun, well, you're going to be lackadaisical in the game. You're not focused.
Right.
You're not being, and I actually had a manager who one time he came up to me and he goes, "How come you're not running around, jumping around, laughing? We're about ready to start the game." He goes, "You're worrying me." And I go, "Well, I've been kind of struggling a little bit." He goes, "No, no, no. Go in there." And we had a long bench in Jacksonville, like a really long piece of wood. And if you hit on it, it was like a bass drum. And so me
Yeah.
and my buddies we would make like songs off this, and it would be like almost like a tribal, hype up thing, And so I went in there and I said, "Okay, hey Jack," his guy Jack Smith, he would help me out. So we started beating on this bench, and then a couple of guys started like chanting and rapping and like, that manager accepted that we were different. And that was, by the way, that was Greg Nettles' brother Jim. He was my manager for 2 years.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
when he said that was actually a real eye opener, because I'm like, I want to be the same guy every day. I want to be the same happy-go-lucky guy, whether I'm 0 for 20 or 20 for 20. I really need to keep, a level, an even keel through this long marathon that's a baseball season. And so, to Nettles' credit, he was also a happy-go-lucky type of a guy, and he
Right.
understood that when he was, depressed, and like he wore it on his sleeve, right? And it hampered his play. So I was lucky in that regard. But I think that today's managers, like, they almost let the player, like, literally, like, do whatever you want. Just show up at game time and then perform. Like, I don't care. You want a tattoo on your forehead? I don't care. I mean, no, no, they don't care about anything personal. These guys wear sweats on the planes. No one's wearing suits anymore. It's like it's a totally different culture than it was,
Oh,
when I played.
you're
Yeah.
right. You're right. The MVP awards, I think that you could certainly make an argument that it was Betts. I think that Freeman's numbers were also very good. And he led a young team. He came back from COVID, led a young team. So I think all that played into the narrative. It's about building a narrative versus expectations, right? Is where the Dodgers are perennial contenders that added a guy and got over the top. The Braves are a younger up and coming team that exceeded expectations again, right? So here we go with this
Right.
expectations crap again, where that's really what it's about. Not to mention the fact that, and I think that Freeman was deserving, whether he should have won it or not, he was certainly deserving of it. I think that, when you look at Abreu, of the three final candidates, he was deserving, but let's not kid ourselves. Look, I'm going to say it. I know nobody wants to hear it. I know, but baseball is
I know
grading
what's
on a
coming. I know what's
baseball
coming.
is grading on a curve. Let me ask you this, okay? This is just straight up. This is just reality, okay? This is reality. If you take Jose Abreu off the White Sox, how many games do they win? Okay. If you take any of those other candidates off their teams, how many games do they win? If you take Mike Trout off the Angels, they win no games. No games. They don't win any games. No games. None. He had
Oh,
a
for
3-week
60.
stretch where he used dad power. If you threw the ball anywhere near the plate, it was going away. It was going away. Way away. 3 straight weeks. Nobody could pitch to him anywhere. You couldn't pitch him high. You couldn't pitch him low. You couldn't pitch him out. You couldn't pitch him in. You couldn't pitch to him. For 3 straight weeks, nobody could pitch to him because he was so happy that he just had a kid whose initials are Bat. His name is Bat. And he used a bat to just, but like, I know they didn't have a winning record. And I know they say, oh, well, that's not all that matters. But the difference is they have to put this on a curve, like when you're grading in school, because nobody else would ever win the award if it wasn't for that, because he is so far and above where all these other guys are as far as his value to that team. They should change the name of the award to the best player this season, the player that performed well this season, because you cannot call it most valuable player and not have Mike Trout win if he's healthy. It's just the truth. I'm just gonna say, look, you call me biased. Yes, I have Angels in the like, okay, but it's the truth. Look at any of the numbers. It's the truth. It's just the way that it is. Like we can just qualify this guy because Artie Moreno refuses to do anything with the pitching staff. Whatever.
Well, Benny,
Like we can disqualify him. It's not his fault, and he does it anyway. I mean, he had a little more help this year with Rendon, but they still didn't perform that well until they finally got going, and it was too late by the time they got going, and they still didn't have the pitching. Even then, if they got in, they would have gotten out really quickly in 1 or 2 games, again, just like they did in 2014. So, you know what? It's Mike Trout is on a different level, and the only way you can call somebody else the most valuable player to their team is to disqualify him from the award. And that's basically what happened this year. They were like, we're just going to pretend like he doesn't exist because that's the only way you can do it.
The only other guy that's been even close in my lifetime to this level of greatness is Barry Bonds in terms of awards, right?
Right.
And and there have been other guys in the 70s who had like one great year and they were still really good the next year, but just not like they were that. But Barry Bonds has had like a streak of great years. And even years where he didn't win MVP, you could say that he deserved it, right? And there's been nobody that's been as dominating since, except for Mike Trout. And I do believe he gets penalized for being Mike Trout, that he's at another level. If you ask any of the players who's your MVP this year? Oh, Mike Trout, and what about, Christian Yelich one year got hot and so-and-so gets hot another year and so-and-so gets hot another year. I'm sorry, Mike Trout just stays the same, consistent, good. He's in the top 5 of almost every category every damn year. You want to rag his defense? I mean, yeah, he's getting a little bit older, but he's still in the top. I would say the top 10% of center fielders, and even though he's been a 10-year player, so there's nothing that Mike Trout is penalized for being Mike Trout. That's the only way you can kind of look at it.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. And people can rag him defensively all they want to, but look at how many times he leaps over a fence and robs a home run. He does it consistently year after year, still does it now, even though he's in the league 10 years. And he gets criticized for his arm. I have never seen him overthrow a cutoff man. I have never seen him make a throw that went wild. So maybe he does not have the arm of Roberto Clemente, but he's got a great arm. He doesn't.
He throws 94 miles an hour is his average from the outfield throw. 94. That doesn't suck. I'm sorry.
Think about this. Think about
How
this
do
for
you
a
get better
second.
than that?
Think about this for a second. So this wasn't the case for a long time, but this year this was the case. Right field, Brandon Ward, Joe Adele throwing homers over the fence. Who's in left? Justin Upton. Justin Upton is in left. You might as well not even have him out there. You might as well have no guy in left. I would rather see Trout play left center field and just cover both than to even see Justin Upton to left field, honestly. Like, it's just, you might as well not even have him out there. Like, what's the point? Like, and Brandon Ward, like, he's playing right field and he's an infielder. He's not even a guy that's played the outfield that much. They're trying to make him that so that they can put his bat in the lineup, which isn't even great, but I mean, it's okay. I mean, I get where they're coming from. And Joe Adele is obviously not there yet. I mean, I think that he will be. I think he'll be a good player still. I'm not discouraged at all, but it takes time, and he didn't have very much time this year, and he will get that time, and they will give him that time, and it will happen. They also have a guy named Brandon Marsh that I actually really like. I would be fine trading it all because I actually really like Brandon Marsh. In fact, I would actually like to see those 3 guys be the outfielders unless they can get somebody else. But I don't even like saying shit like this, stuff like that, because Artie Moreno will go out and sign another all-star outfielder instead of getting anything that they actually need. And don't do it. Don't do it.
Well, that's a perfect
sign Bauer. Sign Bauer is what they need to do.
Yeah,
that should be priority 1.
That's a perfect lead in to a question from a listener. Steve in Glendale, Arizona says, will the Angels new GM, what's his name? New GM? I can't remember his name.
Yeah, he's from the Atlanta Braves. It's Jeremy Medea.
When did this happen?
Just today.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear.
They didn't confirm the reports yet, but it said
it's true
to confirm tonight. Yeah, it's a done deal. But anyway,
it's on Angels Baseball Addicts. If you guys are watching this, you can go. The link is already up. I can't remember the guy's name. He just got the job today, but it's on Angels Baseball Addicts.
What in the world?
He was with the Braves, I believe. Anyway, Steve in Glendale, Arizona has a very pertinent question, particularly to what we're talking about right now. Okay, will the Angels' new GM address the pitching rotation, or will he be an idiot? This is Steve's words on mine. Will he be an idiot and find a way to pay Edwin Encarnacion $20 million a year and then sign a couple minor league starting pitchers? Okay, I believe
I know
guy
the
was-
answer. I know
believe-
the answer.
Well, before we get your answer, Jim, and I hope that Steve with this question is doing it tongue in cheek. I think partly is, partly not though. What I'm thinking is that they're going to go after Bauer, fully loaded, both guns loaded, do whatever it takes to get in there. We've talked about this before. If he wants an apartment there, give him an apartment. If he wants to live in that place where you and I go all the time, Jim, the Catch. If he wants to live in the Catch, let him live there. Pay for it. Get him on that team. What better can you do than sign a Cy Young Award winner who's at the peak of his career, at the peak of his skills? What can you do? Sign Bauer and then sign another top-notch free agent pitcher. Marcus Stroman is available. There's a couple other guys.
Stroman is not.
Oh, he's not. What
He
happened?
re-signed 1 year, tender, 18.3
I saw
million.
that.
The Mets. Oh, I hadn't heard that yet. Okay. So Stroman, well, okay, he's not available, but you know, Stroman could have a year like Julio Teheran had, so there's no guarantee there. With Bauer, you know you're going to get a great season. There are other free agent available pitchers. They need to go after one of them at least. And as far as hitters available, not a huge list. George Springer's out there available. I don't see him signing with the Angels, but it would be nice to have him on their team rather than the Astros. But Jim, you have the answer to Steve's question. And what is that answer?
Well, and here's the answer, in my opinion, and this is strictly my opinion, and I just heard this news. Why would somebody from Atlanta be attracted to the Angels?
Scouting.
Someone that's right. And building the organization up from draft pick to major leaguer and having a stuff load of guys that you're pulling in from the Dominican and from the Latin American countries, and you stack the freaking deck with young guys, and those become major league stars and trade bait. And now you can trade to get Bauer, and you can trade to get Encarnacion, for God's sake, whoever the hell you want, because now you have an organization that is solid from rookie ball and feeding the major leagues. And the Angels haven't had that. They haven't had that maybe ever. They had maybe they had it in the early or late 90s. They had, a good cropping of guys coming up that helped that 2002 team. And maybe they had it briefly when Trout and some of those guys were coming up, but it wasn't enough to where you're looking at the Atlanta Braves were trash 5 years ago, trash team. And now they didn't really do much. They just grew the homegrown guys to become their stars, right? There wasn't a whole lot of transactions going on. That's my opinion, for no other reason than maybe that GM sold the fact that he knows the formula for building an organization up from draft pick to major league. And maybe that was his magic bullet that nobody else could come to the table with, who had, let's say experience or success as a GM. Just thinking out loud. But that's where I think Artie would be more valuable than who's going to come in and spend all my money on a bunch of old guys. I already tried that and it doesn't work.
But this is exactly the problem here, right? So I agree that they need someone who's strong in scouting. Okay, I agree that they need that. But this hire, to me, tells me the answer to the question that Artie he's the guy that's making these decisions. He doesn't care about this.
100%. 100%.
He is still doing that when he signed Rendon. So the question that listener had, it's Artie Moreno is the one doing that stuff. Artie Moreno is the one that wanted Josh Hamilton. Artie Moreno is the one that wanted C.J. Wilson. Artie Moreno is the one that wants to extend out Justin Upton. But Upton was also, Pujols, all that stuff. Pujols at 32 was already on the decline. We gave him a 10-year deal, although I could argue that was a good deal, even though I know a lot of Angels fans don't want to hear that.
That was a good deal. I think
it was, but for reasons other than winning, which is not what Angels fans like to hear. But Mike Trout maybe wouldn't be on the same level, right, without that kind of a deal. We can say that, but we don't know that, right? And he says that that's probably not the case. Mike Trout does, right, because of Pujols. But the fact of the matter is that nothing is going to change until they make themselves a destination. and they have to do that. Now, having Mike Trout is a big part of that, but you have to you have to show that you know how to build a team. And when you just go out and say, like we all appreciate Anthony Rendon, right? I mean, he's a great hitter. I like plugging him in behind Trout as much as anybody does, right? That's a great move. I still think for years to come, we'll see there's a lot of benefit to that move for Mike and for Anthony to do that, for him too. They'll both get better pitches. They'll be able to do it a little longer maybe than they would have by being next to each other. That's good. They both have, they both are clutch guys, especially Rendon has proven it in the playoffs. And certainly already loved those intangibles. But you also have to be realistic about what your team needs. And I don't think he is formulating enough. And he's, we could blame Billy Epler. We could blame DePoto from before that. We could blame, going back to Regans and Stoneman's still over there, but and all these guys. But the fact of the matter is that the last time the Angels won the World Series, the only time, and the only time since they've really been competitive, other than borderline 2014. But I mean, Artie Moreno was not the owner. So that was Disney that was the owner in 2002. He got him in 2003 after that because they sold high. So, I want to see some proof from Artie this offseason. And look, I would love to get Trevor Bauer. I hope that somehow they can work that out. Sources tell me otherwise, that there is no chance that that's going to happen for a lot of reasons that have to do with Trevor Bauer not wanting that to happen. So I think that as much as we're all hopeful that happens, I hope that that's wrong. I hope that they can work it out. I hope they at least have a conversation and sit down and talk and do all of that. But the Angels also can't say, hey, we're on the cusp of winning either, because they're like several pitchers away. And now they don't have a shortstop. I mean, they could argue and go, well, we have Fletcher over there. But I mean, you could put Fletcher anywhere. But whatever hole you have, there's a David Fletcher, put him there. I mean, whatever. I mean, he could do that, and he is that good. But I would like to see them, and it worries me because I see them in talks about all these things, about all these big infield guys and stuff. And I'm like, listen, you've got Rendon, you've got Fletcher. Rengifo could get it done at second base if you needed him to. They went out and got Barreto for La Stella, whatever. Okay, well, now you've got these guys. So what are you going to do? At some point you've got, look, I can't even do this. And you have to get people out. You have to get people out. I don't know what else to say. You have to get people out. I like Andrew Haney, but he's injury prone, and even when he's solid, he's a more of a middle type starter. A 3, 4, 5 kind of guy. He's not a 1. I really like Griffin Canning. I think he could be a 2-3 guy, but right now he's probably more like a 4 or 5 because of consistency. And he's still learning. Shohei, is he ever going to be completely healthy enough to be a two-way player on the major league level in Major League Baseball? I don't know. He hasn't proven that yet. And I'm afraid that, it's affecting him on the hitting side because of what's going on mentally with the pitching and his arm, and thinking, am I going to be completely healthy enough to do this again? Because he's not used to that. He was dominating, before on both sides, and he's not used to that doubt being in his mind. And I know they're going to keep trying him as a two-way player. And I mean, that's got potential if it can work out. But I mean, how much can your body take? I mean, being one of those positions, you guys know better than me, by the way, is incredibly taxing in itself, much less, Jim, can you imagine being the pitcher, and being in the lineup every day? I mean, you see what these guys go through mentally outside. I know fans don't want to hear that, and they don't want to go, well, but you get paid, this is your job, and you make millions of dollars. But the truth is these guys are human beings, and they go through all these emotional roller coasters just like you do in your job and all this other stuff. And these guys are not, superhuman. And, Ohtani has had some success hitting, and he's had some success pitching. But if he can't stay healthy, they're going to have to make a decision there. And it's probably going to be that he has to be a DH or become an outfielder. Or a first baseman, maybe, if they wanted to do that. But Walsh has been playing well. So he looks like the heir apparent to Pujols, because quite frankly, they don't really have anybody else to do it. So why not, right? So we'll see what happens if Pujols even retires, whatever. But look, this is the same story with the Angels. I'm tired of talking about it. You're tired of hearing about it, right? Let's get Mike Trout some pitching, and the Angels will be in the playoffs, and then we'll see what he can do in the playoffs. Him and Rendon and Fletcher in the playoffs. I want to see that. I want to see Fletcher get on and Trout come up and then Rendon be on deck. I want to see what that looks like. I'm never going to see that. And instead, I'm just sitting here directing traffic. I look like an idiot. Look at that. We need to get this done. Get it done, Artie. Let's go. But
they're not going to get it done, though. They're not going to get. I'm telling you right now. I just don't see it in the economic situation that Major League Baseball is in. Artie's got all his cards in one basket with that parking lot. You know, there's just way and a lot of money in Pujols and a lot of money in other guys. I don't see it happening this year with trying to maybe get some bargains, but you know, or a short-term deal. Like if Baby Bauer says I'll come in for 1 year or something, and you say, well, okay, 1 year, 20 million or whatever. Okay. I mean, it's still not a good fiscal move. It's not. And so I really don't think, as much as we want to see Trout get into the playoffs, even I just don't see with this hire of GM that's the direction that they're going. If they wanted to wheel and deal, Dombrowski would be the GM right now. If they wanted to just go after free agents and go after people who were friends with the agents, they would just hired him and just, here's $100 million, go get us a team. And they didn't do that. And that just, to me, speaks volumes of, you know, maybe they'll pick off a guy or two in free agency that is a let's just say a lower profile guy, but they see a high upside on the mound for him. By the way, Cam Bedrosian's available. Do you know that, Benny? So you never know. My favorite pitcher to rag on the Angels. I'm sorry. He ended up having great stats. I looked at his stats. They're like a 3.32 ERA. Like, can't argue.
Benny can't take it. You know? Look at Benny. He can't take it anymore.
But I'm just saying, you know, at the end of the day, man,
I'm
like
sorry.
you have to
I'm
remember.
sorry. I'm gonna be under here. So.
Yeah, you just have to remember you have to remember you can read a lot about decisions in baseball that are being made by who they put in charge. You know, Tony La Russa being put in charge of the White Sox, that speaks volumes in terms of what this owner thinks is the best thing for his team. Okay. And you can just, I mean, again, they want a father figure on that juvenile team. That's what I see is happening. They need someone who has a Hall of Famer that everyone has to respect because of what he's done already in his career. And maybe that wasn't the circumstance of the Renteria. Okay. I see a very parallel thing going on with this GM choice that, you know, they have a plan, and maybe it's a 3 to 5 year plan. Trout will still be an Angel. Trout will still get a chance to get to the playoffs. Maybe this guy has a portal to some international, you know, prospects or agents in that realm where really we don't see a lot of Angel up and coming, you know, guys coming over from Latin American countries until they're traded over. You know, maybe that was a deficit within the organization that already recognized, and maybe this guy can fill that gap. Look, this is speculation, okay? But I'm just smelling a deal where he could have picked anybody. Anybody wants to be GM of the Angels, okay? Everybody who was, including Victor Rojas, for God's sake, okay? And at the end of the day, if you pick that guy from Atlanta, it almost tells me the story of where Artie's head is. That's my point.
Right. Well, and one of the things I wanted to take some positives away. Okay, so we're not just going to be negative, right? So number one, you do still have Mike Trout. That's a pretty good positive. David Fletcher, I mean, you know, you've got Anthony Rendon, great hitter. I love that guy. Every time he comes up to the plate, he just, man, I don't know, that guy just is so cool under pressure, man. It's unbelievable. I don't know how he does it. But you know, some of the positives is at the end of last season, they were struggling, and they dealt some guys. You could see that a new sense of urgency happened when they started seeing these guys get dealt. La Stella and some of the other guys that they dealt. You could see some of these guys. Oh crap! Like it's like, yeah, you have to win. That's how this works. And they responded to Joe Madden, and they made a run at the end. It wasn't a great run. They didn't have the pitching, but they made a run. They tried, and until the last week or so, they were still in it. As where a lot of people thought they would have been eliminated weeks before. They were in it. They made a run, right? So they responded to Madden, which is great and not surprising, right? Because if you know Joe Madden, he's a fun guy to play for. He's a guy you want to respond to. I want to see what Joe Madden does with Shohei Ohtani. I want to see them stop. So, you know, if he's going to try to be a starter or whatever, but like you were saying years ago, Jim, and Angels fans now every day are telling me, Let's just make him a reliever. Then it's not as much stress on him. Just put him in here and there, put him in when you need him, or whatever the case may be, and then let him hit the rest of the time, and he can still pitch. Now, I know Ohtani in his head is going, but I'm an ace, like I can. And I mean, honestly,
Get over that.
When we saw him healthy at the beginning of his career for 10 games, he looked like an ace. I mean, he looked like that because of a splitter, but that also destroyed his arm, right? So
why can't you be an ace out of the bullpen though? Why can't you be an ace when the game is on the line?
But if anybody can do that, we have the manager for it, right? It's not like we don't have the guy. Like, we have the guy. So let's let the guy do his job, and hopefully we get out of his way, and nobody's, I don't think Madden would be there if they were in his way managing, but I think that, let him do his job, get him some more pitching options and creative stuff. But it would be insane to assume that you could sign a couple bullpen guys and that's going to fix your problem. And I'm afraid, because I keep hearing this when I hear about what they're thinking about doing and things like that. Like, you really need starting pitching. Like, this is not just like a fad of this thing that's going on where some of these teams are starting these guys, and Tampa Bay started this a few years ago now, where a lot of the games are relievers and stuff. Like, you can get away with that here and there, but you need, look at the teams that are still at the top, right? They've got good starters. Walker Buehler, Clayton Kershaw. These guys got you to the dance. Blake Snell not being able to finish that game took the dance away from you, right? Like, so Garrett Cole, there's a reason why they paid him all that money, right? This is not a coincidence, and this is part of baseball that has not changed, right? You need 6 solid innings in the playoffs out of your starting pitching, probably at least your top 2 guys, if not your top 3. Straight up. You want to compete, that's what it is, and you have the offense. So the great part is that part of this puzzle you don't have to worry about right now. You know what you're going to get from part of this puzzle over here. Rendon's going to be Rendon. Trout's going to be Trout. Fletcher's going to be Fletcher. Some of the other guys will fill in here and there sporadically, which is good, because a few years ago you didn't even have that. So now those guys are doing that. They're doing their thing. They're filling in where they need to, except for Upton. But whatever, we'll take care of him, and Pujols' contract will be gone. So whatever, that'll work itself out. So now just fix the other part. Get yourself 3 solid pitchers and fix this. Like, you can do this, Angel. You can do it. You don't have to get an ace. You can get James Paxton. You can get guys that are solid. You can get these guys. You can get Musgrave from the Pirates. He's a very solid dude. He will at least give you 6 solid innings. Please, Artie.
Benny, I got a scenario for you, Benny. Tell me what you think about this one. Last weekend, John Lester went on social media in Chicago and thanked the fans for being so great to him over his tenure as a Cub. And he said, go to these 4 specific bars and tell him that I want to drink on Lester. And they gave him a Coors Light. And his bar tab was $47,000 in one day in those 4 bars, because that's how many people went out and got drunk, thanks to John Lester in Chicago. Okay. This draws a thought. A lot of speculation that he's going to retire. Well, who was his old manager? You see where I'm going with this?
Oh yeah.
And maybe he does a $47,000 beer guzzle, Eric, when we're at the Catch in Anaheim next time. You never know. Okay.
Somehow this went from being good for Angels pitching to being good for Jim getting free beer.
It's good at the Catch,
but
it's
the
good.
Best place to be.
It's good for, this would be a great what I would call like an experiment for Lester to say, look, I'll go to a different league. I go with a manager I'm comfortable with, who understands all my quirks. I'll take less to do it. I'm in a really cool part of the country. My kids can go to Disneyland every damn day or whatever, if it's open, go to the beach, live in a beach house, all the things that a lot of players did when I was growing up. Reggie Jackson, all these guys retired with the Angels, Fred Lynn, Don Baylor, like they retired as Angel players because it's a great place to play. But someone like a John Lester could make a huge difference on that team, not just on the mound, but in
leadership.
And this is how you do. This is how you become a major leaguer. So I'm just throwing this out there. I don't know. He's made comments about wanting to retire or not going to be pursuing free agency very hard. But if I'm the new GM and I'm talking to Artie and we got the guy's former manager right here, the guy that won the World Series with him, and he's still got some gas in that tank. Hey, maybe we can steal him for a year. Maybe we can
break another curse. The curse of Angels starting pitching. Break that curse. You've already broken 2 with Boston and with Chicago. Break another curse, John. No problem. I'm sure that Joe Madden would be all for that.
The formula now is let's get your starter to get you to 5 innings and still be in the game. Like that's literally the formula. Just give me 5 innings. But the best teams have a guy like Greinke who's going to get you 7. Kershaw is going to get you 7. Bieber's going to get you 7 and still have 80 pitches, thrown because they're just so efficient. And by the way, isn't that how the Atlanta Braves were when in my heyday? The Braves had that pitching staff, and they were there every single year with just mediocre talent and a lot of the position players. Just talent, like okay hitters, great defense, but okay hitters. Yeah, there's Chipper Jones, sure. But and my point is in saying all that is it was the pitching that won for Atlanta. When I was growing up, it was the pitching that won for the Dodgers. And that is clearly still the way it is. I mean, Washington won it last year with pitching. Dodgers win it this year with pitching. Atlanta gets as far as they get to with pitching.
Artie, I got a secret for you. Go to Throw Zone Academy and get guys from there. Go get guys from Jim Wagner, Tyler Glasnow, Trevor Bauer. For the love of God.
Well, and Jim, you made a couple of good points I want to touch on briefly before I get to the next listener question. One was, I think it's a big sign that Artie hired this particular GM from the Braves who are known for developing their own talent. That's a huge sign. He didn't just, pull his name out of a hat. There were a lot of people lined up interviewing for this position. Secondly, I want to point out a team that has been very successful developing their own talent, not signing a lot of free agents, and yet people have this perception of them as, oh, well, they have this high payroll, they must sign a bunch of guys. I'm talking about the Los Angeles Dodgers, obviously. If you look at their main players, the guys on the field, the Corey Seagers, the Cody Bellingers, the Kike Hernandez,
Jock Peterson,
Will Smith, Jock Peterson, they came up through the organization. They were signees from high school and college.
Right.
Kershaw. Again, number 1 picks.
Jensen.
Vince Scully, homegrown. Vince Scully, homegrown.
He only had one job his whole life. Vince Scully.
That's right. By the way, Kenley Jansen was a catcher when they signed him. And when they converted him in 2011 to a pitcher, they converted him in spring training. And by the end of the year, he was their closer. So let me just give props to Kenley for being there that long, 10 seasons. And people forget all the people who attacked him on social media and made death threats and things like that. He put in some good years. The Dodgers would not have gotten as far as they got without him some of those years. So,
Julio Urias.
It's almost like the Dodgers had some kind of long history of establishing a scouting department and being innovative in the field somehow. I don't remember where this started. Jim, do you remember where that started? I don't remember.
It's like they should start an academy in the Dominican or something. Like, shouldn't they do something like that?
What an idea! Oh, wait a minute! Didn't that idea come up back in the '50s, late '50s? Who was the scouting director back? Oh, a guy named Campanis, Al Campanis.
Yeah.
So that move by Artie was smart, and it relates to what the Dodgers have done. And maybe in his mind, he was thinking, well, the Dodgers have done this way. Look, they just won the World Series after winning the division 8 years in a row, after being in 2 out of the last 3 World Series. Here they're in the 3rd time in 4 years. They finally win. Maybe that's something I should think about trying here. Why not? We tried everything else and it hasn't worked. But that leads me to our next listener question. And this is from Jake in Glendale, Arizona. And it's something that we've touched on briefly, but I don't think we've talked about it in depth. And his question is, do you think the season will start on time for 2021?
Nope.
And will there be fans in the stands? Now, I know that we differ on this. We disagree on this. Jim, go ahead with your opinion first.
Well, and again, look, this is not what I want. I live in California. They just told us that we can't go to Thanksgiving if there's going to be more than 3 households of people, and we can only limit our Thanksgiving to 2 hours. Try to tell a Greek, Italian, German family that you can only hang out for 2 hours. We can't even say hello in 2 hours. This isn't going to work. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so if they're telling us this is what Thanksgiving looks like, what's Christmas going to look like, and then what's the New Year celebration going to look like? And then, oh, now everybody, let's get ready to go to Arizona, where maybe it's a little more loose with the rules. Oh, until COVID hits.
Wait a minute. Before you go any further, does this mean I won't be having dinner at the Campanis household this year with Jim and Brenda and the rest of you?
No, because in fact, we're having 3 different houses having Thanksgiving, and we're going to Zoom them in.
Oh,
so
man.
This is the new normal in California, and now it's getting even worse. And again, no political talk, political talk aside, but the new regime, when it kicks in January, is going to be very much focused on science and making sure that this, if this indeed this vaccine, is something that can get us a little bit more back to normal. There's going to be a high focus, high energy on that. Every player is going to need to have it done. And again, the only chance that we have to have any kind of semblance of a regular season is if the government and the governments of all of the states and counties and cities are on board with science. And I don't see that happening for spring training, at least. So I am predicting that we're going to have another abbreviated season or a short season. But after seeing what happened in 2020, I just think that that's just another pivot that we're going to have to make to see and play the wonderful game of baseball. And I'm okay if they come back and say, all right, we're going to do 140 games. Spring training is going to start in April. And that's how we're going to have to do it. Okay.
And what about the second part of his question? Will there be fans in the stands?
Now that's where it comes down state by state. And I guarantee you there'll be fans in places like Texas and in Missouri and other places where they're going to have a little bit less stringency with social distancing. And these are the same people who will be able to eat inside when everybody else is eating outside. All of this stuff all comes back to the science and the data. But again, if the vaccine has been proven successful and enough people have it, and they have certain, protocol in place that's science-based, that's the only chance we have, in my opinion, of having any kind of normality in this season or a season over 100 games. Is there's going to have to be a lot of cooperation amongst, the political spectrum of states, counties, governments, and all just for baseball. This is where I'm concerned that people are going to say, well, it's just baseball. Like, sorry, you're not going to do it. It's too dangerous. Well, right now we're playing college football for no other reason than these schools need money. Let's not be stupid. These schools are playing college football right now for money, and they're for TV contracts. And now every kid in Notre Dame has to take a COVID test because they ran on the field over the past weekend because they beat with Clemson or somebody. And and that is what is the biggest nightmare if you are someone in charge of your county's health department or your state's health department, or you're a government leader dealing with. So I put myself into, if I were a politician and if I had my job on the line and millions of lives on the line, what can we limit to save people? Fans in the stands. Easy. That's an easy one, right? So I think if you're in Los Angeles, no fans in the stands. I think if you're in Texas, they'll have, let's say 10,000, 20,000 fans a game in a sellout because they're going to social distance because the state allows it. Again, that's how I see that playing out.
Well, what about this? Arizona, the results were released yesterday. Arizona now has a spike in cases that's caught up almost to where we were in June, when Arizona had the highest number of cases and the highest number of positive results than anywhere in the world, not less America. So what if that happens again? It's happening right now. What if that trend continues? And then come February and March, when we're supposed to have spring training games, Do we
Yeah.
do spring training like we did the 60-game regular season?
They're going to have to bubble it up. It's going to have to
Yeah.
bubble up. And that's the only way it's been proven that it works is if you bubble. And that's where the college teams are not doing the bubble. And that's where their players are constantly, if they're talking about canceling several football games this weekend already because of COVID on like the University of Maryland, for example, a whole bunch of guys got COVID. So now they're saying, well, we're going to have to cancel that game and then this game and then that game and this, because they haven't been able to bubble that up. But now look at the Major League Baseball bubble during playoffs. Look at the NBA bubble. Those are very efficient. Those are well done. Players had to sacrifice, families had to sacrifice. But as fans, we were able to enjoy the highest level of competition at the highest level of a season. And you know, to me, I got a lot of satisfaction personally as a fan and a former player. I got to live these great moments with these players. You know, This was a wonderful postseason to me. So, in my opinion, again, if they can replicate the bubble somehow, and I don't know if they have to do it by time zone like they did this past year, but maybe they again come up with some kind of a scenario where, for example, the Padres played the Dodgers 2 weeks straight in a bubble, you know, and now everybody tests good. Now the Dodgers go to San Francisco and they play 2 weeks straight there, and the Padres go to Diamondbacks and play 2 weeks straight there. There's a lot of ways that this could happen, but it's always going to be done under the guise of scientific safety, and that's how I think this new regime, you know, rolling into the government, is going to look at things, you know, versus the current regime.
Right, and hey, if you have to play the same team 2 weeks in a row, you're going to face them that many times over the course of the season anyway. You know, why not? And can you imagine how much fun it's going to be for Dodger fans to be able to see the Giants series and get to see Mike Yastrzemski play every night for a couple
You got
of
him
weeks.
in. You got him in. I love
Mike
it.
Yastrzemski, my favorite Giant, future MVP. But I want to point out that Jim, as you know, I live walking distance from a high school here, a local high school, Centennial High School in Peoria. And they've been having their Friday night football games. I know because I sit on my patio and I can hear the band playing and the crowd cheering. So that's going on. That's at a high school level. So if that's being allowed here now, even with the spike in numbers that we have, well, and maybe it comes down to, as you said, a new regime will look at things differently and take a more scientific approach. What I'm wondering is, will Major League Baseball, will Rob Manfred's office, are they now planning for spring training and the regular season next year? Because they should be. They should definitely be laying out plans. They should. Benny, what do you think about next year?
They're going to have to do some bubbles. It's going to be, you know, fans. I mean, that would be nice if they got to that point. If the vaccine starts to work, maybe by the following season, you would get it back more to normal.
And you're talking 2022.
Right. And there's more vaccines on the way. This one, the first one that Pfizer announced, is apparently 2 doses. It has to be kept at a very low temperature, all that kind of stuff. So there's some very particulars, and there's only going to be 50,000 available up front, which they're going to give to the people that need it the most. It sounds like is what the plan is. How they're going to do that and when that happens and all that, I'm not sure. I don't think they're sure yet.
I know that includes me and my family and Jim and his family and you and your family.
Now,
as for the other
first responders,
people, I don't know.
First responders
joking,
are talking about.
but
I know, but again, I think Benny hit the nail on the head. Is like that's going to be when science and fact are converging.
Yeah. I think you're right, and I think that you so look, it would be disingenuous not to talk about the facts at hand. It's not a political statement. So there are over 100,000 cases a day. By the time you get that vaccine, even if it starts rolling out, that's not going to eliminate things immediately, and there's not going to be enough doses immediately, even if there were more than one vaccine. And depending on how effective all of them are, they said 90%, but that has to go. That's not. There's no real data on that to prove that yet. That's just the theory.
What does 90% mean, Benny? Right? By the way,
90% effective.
What is that? What does that mean?
It means it's 90% effective at treating the COVID or
for 90% of the people.
Not 100%.
For
right. So that's
no, is it 90%? This is an honest question.
So normally there would be data and clinical trials and all these things that would prove exactly what that efficiency point means. And right now it's all in theory. Plus most of these vaccines are done in a way that is not the normal way. So it has to do more with mimicking your body's response, as opposed to, I guess, normally that is not how they would create a vaccine, but they're trying it because they've had some good, they've had other things work by doing that. And so now they're trying it with this, and apparently it has been very effective so far. But that's just it, is that we don't really know. They can say it's 90% effective in the trials that we've done, but what does that mean? It's a small sample size. But even if it was 50%,
my questions. I'm sorry, my
I know
question
this
is more specific to why is it 90%? Like, so if I'm in a room full of COVID people and I got the vaccine, am I 90% good? Like, I'm not going to get it. There's a 90% chance I'm not going to get it, or like, what is 90? Or does it mean like 10% of the people would get it and 90% wouldn't get it? Like, I don't understand what the percentage of 90 really infers.
So I think
what does that really mean?
But that's the problem. That's what I'm saying. That's the problem, is there's not enough data and there's not enough clinical trials and all the stuff to know what that really means. So they're saying it's 90% effective based on small trials that they've done for a situation like what you're talking about, where 90%.
But wait, effective to get it, 90% effective to get
prevent
it,
it, like any vaccine,
to prevent
like the normal daily flu, the normal Spanish flu, right? So it would be that kind
you're
of
right in that assumption. Jim, you're right in that assumption that it would be 90% effective. Let's say in Benny's scenario, let's say 100 people in a room and 10 of them have it. 90% of the people would have a chance to not have it if they had that vaccine. Is that correct, Benny?
Because they built up an immunity to it.
They built up the immunity system. That's right.
But the problem.
So, and 10% wouldn't be able to build up the immunity.
Maybe not.
I'm serious. I don't understand.
Everybody is built. So your genetics are different. There's some people that it's not going to immediately give them that. In fact, you may get sick. And in fact, quite frankly, when I usually take vaccines, I get sick. So I'm a little like off put anyway by vaccines. I've always have been. Every time I've ever gotten a flu shot, I get sick immediately. I don't like vaccines personally. It's not that I don't believe in them. I do believe in them. I think that they work, and I think people should take them to, ensure their health. I mean, that's an important thing. I'm not a vaccine debunker. There's people that are that, and that's not at all. That's my own personal experience, is that every time I take a vaccine for something, I tend to get sick. But at the same time, what's going to happen, and to go back to the listener question, so if you're at 100,000 now, right, you've got all these holidays coming up and stuff, and let's be honest, a lot of people aren't going to follow the guidelines, right? I mean, we can say it all day long. You can give them whatever guidelines you want. They're not going to follow it. They're going to, oh, well, we'll do it after Christmas, or, whatever, if they even take it that seriously. And a lot of people don't.
Right.
People dismiss it arbitrarily, completely, right? But this is a real thing. Like, people go, oh, it's, whatever. It's okay. I see it every day in my job still, every day, that people they refuse to acknowledge that it's reality, that it's even happening. So regardless, what's going to happen is these numbers are going to double and triple. They've already said, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, I just was watching yesterday, and he said by February, you're going to be at 2,250 cases a day. He said that's what's going to happen. And that's before the effectiveness of even if they could roll out a vaccine that fast. And so it's just going to keep multiplying. This is not going away right now. It's not going away, but we can help prevent it. And every time they take preventative measures and make them mandatory, the numbers go down, which is why they keep having to do that, right? So if people would just do that without it having to be mandatory and be mindful and stop going, oh, okay, well, we'll go back to, oh, I'm tired of this, so I'm going to go back to the store, not wear my mask. And if you would just keep complying for a little while, we could get this to a manageable level, at least for a while. But now it's starting to blow out of control again, where now that's where they end up having to do these lockdowns, and where we can't have fans and we can't do this and we can't do that, because now it's out of control, and they can't just let it go out of control and kill everybody, right? So like you what are they supposed to do? At some point they have to take measures to make sure that even, and to make it illegal for you to disobey that, just like anything else. Right. They have to take these measures for the greater good, not just because you don't like it or whatever. Like, it's not just about one person or one state or one type of person or a political party. It's not about that. It's about, we cannot let this ravage us over and over and over again. and just keep killing people for no reason, and especially the people that are the most vulnerable, that can't fight it. Their immune systems are not in a position where they could fight it anyway. And some people have a disposition that once you get it, bad things happen to you after you've actually recovered from it. That can be cardiovascular, that can be,
That's
they
right.
still don't even know the long-term effects of that. They said this is not, it's not just the regular flu, like there are long-term effects depending on your genetic makeup and how your body responds to it. You can actually have long-term effects that can kill you later. So
Yeah.
that's why this is such a big deal. It's not just about, oh, I get it and then I'm good. Like, you know, maybe you are, but somebody else wouldn't be. And that's, you know, so that's why it won't be a normal season. But the other big elephant in the room when we talk about baseball specifically, the collective bargaining agreement, right? So we just saw MLB and the players bicker and moan like little girls because they couldn't figure out a way to get themselves to play a game
Like
for
little
money
children,
while nobody else has jobs.
children. Please
Like
don't make
little
that a
children.
sexist term. Thank you, Ben.
And little children, no matter who you think of the players or what you think of the MLB side or whatever, right? And I think most of it's the MLB side. Let's not kid ourselves. But like, you know, the truth of the matter is that they have to get into a room safely 6 feet apart with masks, of course, and figure out, or do it on a conference call, on a Zoom call, or whatever, however they want to do it with the leaders, whether it's Tony Clark and Rob Manfred and all the guys that work for Manfred in the office and whatever. They've got to figure this out and get an agreement and figure this out and get it on the same page. Now, the good thing about all the sports that have taken place is we do have a blueprint for making this work. NBA did that for us. NBA gave you a blueprint, and they used that in the playoffs. And as you saw, it was successful. They didn't have the same kind of cases, except for Turner right at the end there. And, you know, whatever you want to think about him, you know, celebrating with the team and then apologizing or whatever when he knew that he was already diagnosed. But regardless of that, outside of that little debacle, it was pretty successful. NBA had 0 cases in the bubble. Think about that. And think about how long the bubble went on in the NBA. It went on for months. It went on for like 5 months, right? 4 or 5 months total. If you were one of the teams that lasted the whole time, like the Lakers or the Heat, right? You were there the whole time. So some of the other teams weren't there that long, but they got eliminated. They got beat up. So, but you know, so that stuff is vital to all of these questions that these listeners have. Is they can't just allow all these things to happen. I don't think it's going to happen this season where you're going to get fans back in unless they get this under control. And I think by the time you're looking at a World Series, there's no way that's going to happen.
And by the way, Eric, this might be of interest to you. Last night, they opened Dodger Stadium up again for free COVID testing in Los Angeles.
Right.
And they tested something like 20,000 people in their cars.
Wow.
From the crack of dawn until well into the evening. And they just kept shuttling them in. People were waiting maybe half an hour to get their test, and then they would drive out. And they had this like a good little system going. And I think that is another piece. Now, look, I'm not gonna try to sound like any political figure here, but there was not enough testing before, and it seems like there's an extraordinary amount of testing happening now. And so now we're going to get a more clear picture of the infected people versus before. And there's always this thing, like in California, at least, it's like we have these tiers, right? So if X amount of people in LA County have COVID, like now you're into phase 1. And if X amount of people have COVID, you're in phase 2, and et cetera. So, and then you're in lockdown, you know what I mean? Like, depending on how many per thousand have COVID, because they see this as a formula for more infections. And so Trump was always saying, and look again, but he was like, stop testing. Well, that's because it's going to make the world shut down. And at the same time, we can't let the world shut down again economically. So we are all in a huge conundrum. No, I don't care what job you have, what you do, most likely you're going to be affected financially either way. If it's shut down or if it's open, we are all going to be affected in this. And this is where I think our politicians are going to err on the side of caution when it comes to fans in game. That's one thing that they know, that the fans can get an ulterior or a different perspective, but just by watching it on TV, it's not the same fan experience, but they can still get the enjoyment of a baseball game on TV. So that's that's where I really think at the end of the day will be the last, when they allow a full stadium, let's just say we're over this COVID thing.
Yes.
We're over COVID-19.
Yeah. And I think you saw just in the 60-game season we just completed, the pleasure and enjoyment people got, not just people like the three of us who love baseball and would watch it anytime, but your average fan out there and other people who love the game, and some people who watch just because they had nothing better to do. They got enjoyment and pleasure from being able to watch Major League Baseball. Let's face it, it helped a lot get through this end of the summer and early fall. It really did. And so for that, my hat is off to MLB and the Players Association for getting it together long enough to pull this off, even though it's a shortened season. I've said this before because we had listeners who complained that, oh, it's only a 60-game season, so none of these awards matter. Yeah, they do matter. This might have been the hardest 60 games that some of these players ever faced because of what they had to go through and what their families had to go through. So enough of that argument. But what I'm thinking is they initially had a plan for spring training for 2020 that it was a bubble system where like half the teams would be in Phoenix, the other half in Florida. And makes more sense to be here in Arizona because the stadiums are a lot closer together, as you have pointed out, Jim. But there's a way it can be done where spring training can happen. They can play each other and maybe not have as many spring training games as usual, but they can have them and get the players ready for the season and then have maybe 140 game, as you suggested, Jim, season. What I'm concerned about even more than that, and this is not for the fans and not for the people who love baseball and love watching Major League Baseball. What I'm really concerned about are the minor league players.
I was just going to say that.
Who had to sit out this year, and they missed a whole season of development, of pay, of mainly the development. They missed out a whole year of what would have been developing their skills, getting more coaching, taking that many more cuts every day. They'll never get that back. And boy, how do you make up for that? So they have got to have a minor league season next year.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. There has to be, even if it's a shortened season. And the minor leaguers only play 130 games, I think, as it is.
142.
142? Okay.
Yeah.
Then they should at least play 120. They got to have a minor league season.
Well, here's an interesting thing, Eric. There was a kid who was a top pick from the, a top 10 round guy from USC a couple years ago. I saw him at an alumni game. He knew I was a batting coach in Orange County, and I said, hey, look, I know it's hard to find a cage and it's hard to find, even baseballs and somebody can throw to you, So and he's a catcher too. I said, I got pitchers that need to throw. If you need to get in some catching, you need to get in some hitting. Just give me, text me, and here's my number. And I had dinner with him one night at a USC event. He's a good kid.
Yeah.
I'm like, look, anything I can do to help you, man. And I'll you don't have to pay, you just come in and work out because I want my other players to see what you can do so that they can aspire to be a player like you. You've gone through the ringer to get where you are, just like I did. And so he actually texted me yesterday and asked me specifically, now here's what I liked about this is the good opportunity for these young minor leaguers is that a lot of them sign out of college as a junior, like this kid did. So, and then part of their professional contract, they're given a scholarship from Major League Baseball or the team that they signed for to pay for that last year of schooling. Okay.
Right.
So I now know several players, including this guy, who probably never would have graduated college if the minor league season was normal. But when they said the minor league season was canceled, he took summer school. And now he's taken the fall semester, and those were the 2 semesters he needed. And now he's going to graduate. And he just texted me, oh, I need to study for my finals. Let's hit Thanksgiving weekend because I told him I was going to hit Thanksgiving weekend. I said, let's hit Thanksgiving weekend because your finals will be over. And he's like, let's do it. So
that's awesome.
Saying
what a
that
great story.
There is good that's happening, even though these guys aren't playing, specifically for the guys who were most recently drafted to exercise their education clauses in their contracts. Okay.
Right.
So now let's go back to what you said. That's also very important. This guy hasn't swung a bat in a competitive at bat in a year, right?
Yeah.
And he's a professional baseball player. Now that is the downside to this thing. And I really do hope, like you said, Eric, that even if they contract and bring in, they knock out those 25 teams and they bring in this sort of smaller minor league group, at least if they can get in, like you said, maybe 120 games or whatever it might be, that's still, these guys need to develop. And when I was out to see you last time, Eric, was right about the time that the start of instructional league hit for the minor leagues. They didn't have the fall league this year. So that was, and they only invited a select group to go to these instructional leagues. So out of, let's say, 200 guys in your minor league system, they invite like 60 guys, top 60 guys from AAA to rookie ball. So that's what I saw when we were playing when I was playing the 50 and over World Series.
Right.
The Mariners and the A's had a game at the same time, and I was already taken out of one of the games. So I walked over in my freaking 50 over uniform and sat there and watched these guys play. And here's future major leaguers playing on this, field and 120 degrees out, whatever it was that day. But that was all those guys had since spring training. That was the first time that they played a game since spring training.
Oh,
Can you imagine?
man.
Can you imagine?
I cannot. No, I cannot. I cannot.
I mean, I can't remember ever having a gap of that amount of time ever during the summer. I mean, so that is really, in my opinion, going to set the game back a little bit, and we're going to see a lot more injuries. We're going to see a lot more other issues as a byproduct. So, to your point, Eric, if the Major League Baseball is now minor league baseball, they've joined forces. They moved their offices from Florida, from the minor leagues to New York City. They're all operating under the same umbrella. And to me, that means you need to place just as much importance on the way the minor leaguers are going to be playing and treated this year, whether they go into bubbles or not within their own A-ball league or their double-A leagues or whatever. These guys got to play. You're the future of baseball is dependent on these guys playing.
Yes.
So that's a huge a comment that you made, and it can impact the game for decades if we can't get this right for these young guys.
Yeah, because right now there's a Jose Abreu, there's a Trevor Bauer.
Yeah.
There's a Mookie Betts somewhere who just sat out a whole minor league season and is living off of their bonus money basically and having to drive for Lyft and Uber to make a living. That's
and working out in between all of that.
Yeah.
Right.
And something we never hear about, but that's what's going on. People
so
like
this
us
player
who are around the game know it, but nobody else does.
This player that I'm referring to is living with his parents, even though he's got enough money to get his own place. But he recognized he's living with his parents while he's going back to school, while he's working out, and now he's got to start hitting and getting ready for February because he was invited to big league camp. So he's trying to get himself ready for February in November. You know what I mean? Right. And that's typical. That's normal. That's how we normally would get ready, right? That's how we would normally start getting ourselves ready for spring training. Yet this guy hasn't swung a bat, since spring training. And man, it just, I mean, and I talked to him a little bit more in detail about that. And he's like, I've been swinging almost every day. I swing a little bit, but there's no competitive swings. There's no at bats. There's no learning from at bats. There's no learning from, this is how they're pitching me with this organization pitches me this way. This organization pitches me this way. These are things that you learn by freaking playing. So I think that's a very much understated and of supreme importance of how we're going to move this game forward. If baseball starts from the youth and then they play themselves through to their maturity, right? And we have really let those guys down this year. So I hope it doesn't happen 2 years in a row. It can't happen 2 years in a row.
It can't. It cannot happen 2 years in a row.
Can't happen.
This is a watershed moment for Major League Baseball, for professional baseball. If that happened 2 years in a row, it would be devastating for the game. Not only for the players themselves and the owners and the teams and, all the people that work at the stadiums, not only for them, but I'm talking about the future of the game itself. Baseball could turn into, for lack of a better term, a minor league sport to most people if that happens. Because, let's face it, the Clayton Kershaws and the Howie Kendricks and the Max Scherzers are not getting any younger. There has to be younger players to replace them. Well, where do they come from? The minor leagues. I can't stress it enough. And everyone I talk to, I bring it up with, and most people are not even aware. I know people that aren't even aware there wasn't a minor league season because in Arizona, we don't have minor league teams. So it's something that we definitely have to keep our eye on and encourage the commissioner's office and the Players Association to work this out and work it out fast. Really.
We're getting a little short on our Zoom time, Eric. Do you have any further questions from the listeners?
No, but I got one trivia question real quick, which I found interesting.
Sorry. Ty Cobb. I got him in. All right.
Hey, I got in Yaz, you got in Cobb and Road, and I think we're good this week.
And we got Trout in. We got Trout in too, Benny, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because we never do that. All right. This is Benny.
MVP.
That's right.
This is from Danny D in Vegas, our regular listener there. And Danny has a trivia question, and he has it in the form of, who am I? Okay, who am I? And he has 3 facts. Number 1, I coached for the Los Angeles Dodgers, San Francisco Giants, and Atlanta Braves in the late 60s and through the 70s. Not in that order. This guy, I remember this guy. He came up with the Giants, then went to the Dodgers and the Braves. Okay.
Tim Heller.
Tim Heller was an umpire.
There's a catcher. Tom Heller. There you go.
Yeah,
not him. Okay.
Let's see. Number 2, I made the National League All-Star team in 1970. At the All-Star break, I was hitting .337 with 18 homers and 77 RBIs at the All-Star break. He ended the season at 300, 22 homers, and 107 RBIs. So he really dropped off after the All-Star break. I think he might have had an injury, but also he was a catcher. And in the 60s and 70s, catchers got 150 games a year. Take a toll on you. Those are the first 2, and I can tell by the looks on your faces that you don't know who it is.
Wait.
So,
oh my God. No, I'm trying to think. I know his name, but I can't remember it. He was a manager later, wasn't he? Major League manager?
Not that I know of. It's not Bruce Bochy.
No.
Okay, let me give you the
He was a
clue.
catcher and he played for the Dodgers. Who was the other? Who's the
Torborg?
catcher?
Jeff Torborg.
No, he was only with the Dodgers a short time. Okay, let me give you the third.
Can you give me a clue on when he was with the Dodgers?
What? Let's see, 1973, 4.
Joe Ferguson?
No. Let me give you the third clue and see if you get it from this. I am most remembered for being hit by a pitch by Don Drysdale with the bases loaded during his 58 2/3 scoreless inning streak in 1968 when I was with the Giants. I was refused first base and an RBI and breaking the streak because umpire Harry Wendelset ruled that I did not attempt to avoid the ball. So this guy, that would have ended Drysdale's streak at about 52 innings, but he was able to go a little longer and break the record because of that ruling. And after I give you the name, you go online and look on YouTube, not only did he not try to avoid the pitch, he leaned into it. I mean, he was taking it for the team. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Yeah.
The Bad News Bears move. Okay. I am stumped because I don't have enough Giant catcher history. And God dang it, at 73, I should know if he was a Dodger. 70, he's saying that era.
Yeah, he's a Giant.
Jerry Grody?
68, no. And he was not the Giants starting catcher in 68. Tom Haller was the guy that you mentioned. But by 1970, he was an all-star. So, but he wound up with the Dodgers a couple of years later. So, Benny, I can tell you're totally stumped on this one. Yeah.
I was not born for another 15 years after.
And I don't have a reference for Drysdale. I never saw Drysdale pitch. I missed that.
You never
Drysdale
saw
and
that?
Koufax.
Wow.
No,
Oh boy.
just in an
I
old
went
timers game,
I
and
went back and saw some of that stuff though. I mean, like Drysdale and obviously Koufax and all those guys and Clemente and all that. I watched some of their stuff that's available to watch, but I mean, I
I'm
wasn't
really
there.
feeling lucky now because I saw all those guys in person that you just mentioned. Koufax, Drysdale, Clemente, Mays, Aaron. I saw
I
all
saw them
those
at a
guys. Pete
banquet.
Rose.
I saw them all at a banquet. Like that's how I knew those guys. Like I saw
Yeah.
them at a banquet. Never saw them
Jackson
play.
Button.
I got to see him play in person. Anyway, the catcher's name was Dick Dietz. Remember Dick
Okay,
Dietz?
I've heard that name. Yeah.
Yeah. So good question, Danny D in Vegas. Dick Dietz was the answer.
Stumped us.
Yeah, really stumped us. That third, until I saw the third hint, that gave it away to me, so I knew who it was. But I had no clue from the other ones. I didn't realize he had such a great year in 1970. 1970 is the year that is remembered for Pete Rose running over Ray Fosse during the All-Star game.
Yeah, yeah.
What a boy. They still talk about that. He basically ended Fosse's career with that injury, and it was an all-star game, for God's sake, an exhibition game. But
he's still on the radio. He's still announcing. He did okay.
He's still announcing. He did all right in some way. You could argue it helped his career.
Maybe.
But,
made him famous.
Yeah. Having said all that, for people who want to get a hold of me, go to Twitter at Dr. Baseball, at Eric Lenneberg. You can also hit me on Facebook. Same thing, Eric Lenneberg. Just use my name. You can follow us on Spotify and YouTube. I notice our YouTube viewers and followers are starting to grow now as word gets out. For some reason, people listen on Spotify don't immediately convert to YouTube. I thought there'd be a big switch over, but there hasn't been so far. But we are getting a lot more views on YouTube, so check it out. Follow us there. And in January, there's going to be a release of some audiobooks or voiceover work that I did. It'll be one volume of a collection of different works that will be on Spotify as well, and it will be available at a couple different sources. What's going to be available on Spotify is a teaser, basically, because it's going to be for sale. But for listeners of our show and people who watch us on YouTube, it'll be a very special sale. And we might do things like give one away as a gift to the best question each week, something like that. I got to talk to you guys about. But anyway, that's how you reach me. Jim, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so Facebook is the best way. Jim Campanis Jr. I got some stories from my book, Born into Baseball, by the way. You can check out that on bornintobaseball.com. But I also have them on Spotify, and you can even just search my name, Jim Campanis Jr. on Spotify, and it'll give you a whole list of 38 stories. And then I'm also doing a little bit on Twitter at Jim Campanis Jr. So check all that stuff out there. And I am going to be probably getting into a little bit more, maybe another. I wrote a hitting book, and now I want to be coaching on a high school team in Orange County this upcoming year, assuming we get the season in. So that might be a good opportunity for me to push out this hitting book that I call the middle 30 approach, going after the middle 30 degrees of the baseball field.
Oh, I like that. Middle 30. I like that. Benny?
Absolutely, guys. And it's Benny Bam right there. Boom.
Oh, love it.
A new Benny Bam logo.
Well, it's on my website. You guys can check that out as well. I've got everything all now linked in one place there. My little Wixie website I got going on. You can check that link out on my Twitter or Facebook page, which is Benny Bam Legacy is what those are. And then, of course, you can always find me Angels Baseball Addicts. I've got articles on HaloHangout.com, LegendsOnDeck.com. I've got all kinds of stuff on there. I like doing creative writing, not just straight, factual, boring articles. I like doing, putting a spin on stuff. So I always put stuff on there. I've got to put a spin on it somehow to try to put context behind it. So I like doing that. But,
Well, Benny, let me just say that you're very good at that, too. For you people who are listening, check it out. Benny's a little humble about it, but he's a very good writer. I'm always enjoy your writing, Benny. So people check it out. You're going to enjoy it.
I try. It is Angels heavy content, but hey, it's my goal and all that I've ever created with the media stuff I've done around baseball is to bring more attention to the Angels. So that's the goal. So you have to understand that going in, right? So Angels Baseball Addicts, Halo Hangout, all this stuff is to create partnerships and to get them, you know, more of an elevated status. And Artie, if you could help me out with a couple arms, you know, that'd be hey. But you know, hey, it is what it is, guys. But the Backstop Show is on Twitter. It's under the Backstop Show because there's actually other shows that have been called the Backstop, and some of them are really old links and stuff. So ours is all fresh. It's the Backstop Show. Spotify, Apple Podcast, Anchor.fm, the Anchor app. You can find it there. You can find it on YouTube. You can find it on Facebook. You can find it on Twitter. You can find it with a goat. You can find it next to a moat. You can find it everywhere. Okay, it's everywhere. All right, and it's always my pleasure to do stuff with these two gentlemen here as well. And everybody, please stay healthy out there. You know, please try as much as you can to you know, have these guidelines so that we can get back to normal life again as soon as possible. But that won't happen if the cases keep climbing. They're not going to let that happen. You know that. So let's all nip this in the bud and, you know, move on and keep everybody safe and, you know, healthy and everything. And
absolutely,
you know,
absolutely.
Hopefully soon with some more baseball.
Well, we need more green eggs and ham comments. I love that. Green eggs and ham. Green
That's
eggs
right.
and ham. That's how we're going to make it through.
I want Mike Trout's wife to have twins and name them Mitt and Arm, but their initials like Mitt and Arm, and then, you know, then we'll have a whole little crew going, and then we can send them to Throw Zone and, you know, get this moving in the direction, and the new GM can figure that out. No pressure.
I love that. I love that. No pressure at all. Hey, everybody, thank you for listening. I enjoy doing this show with these two guys every week. I look forward to it, and it makes my week. So I want to thank you, gentlemen, again. But as echoing the comments of my co-hosts here, please be safe out there. Use common sense. Think about this as not being just for you. It's for all of us. So wear your mask. Do whatever you have to do to continue what we're all trying to accomplish. Okay?
Just remember, as much as you have a mask like that, just remember, if you don't wear those, Jim had to wear a much tougher mask for a long time.
That's right. Fight on, Eric.
There he
Fight
is.
on.
There he is.
Fight on.
Oh, look at that. I'm buying an ASU mask tomorrow.
Let's do it. We'll have masks off. Mask off.
There we go. Well, everybody have a safe week, a happy week, a comfortable week, a healthy week, and we will be coming right back at you soon.
Backstop.